Hi, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to receive all new updates. Our movie today begins with a building guard named Louis, and we see Louis running and showing him that he is running away from something that is being expelled. And we know him when he suddenly stops. In the changing room, all the closets around him open, and he sees himself in the reflection of all the mirrors. At that time, he becomes terrified and asks for forgiveness from an unknown person, telling him that he will come back and take care of the mirror and clean it again. But at this time, the mirror breaks and the reflection of Louis appears, and he looks at him in a terrifying way, and involuntarily he goes down. Louis takes a piece of the broken mirror, turns his reflection in the mirror, and drags himself with it until he dies. After a few days, we see a former police officer named Ben, and he reveals that Ben is suffering from depression, and this appears from the depression medications he takes, and before he leaves the house, he assaults his sister Angela and finds out that he is out. Ben moves to his new place of work, and we learn that his guards are guarding an abandoned building, and they take the building guard for the morning and find out everything in there. He tells him that the palace guard who was before him has disappeared and we cannot find him. The guard tells him the story of the palace and tells him that in the mid-90s he was in a hospital where the palace was. But after a very ugly accident in the hospital, they were forced to close it. After that, a famous businessman bought it and renovated it and left it as a large fashion and perfume showroom. But after a while, the showroom collapsed and was completely destroyed, and because of this fire, many victims were lost. From that day on, it remained closed, but the owner of the showroom refused to sell it. I noticed that the mirrors in the place are very clean, despite the state of chaos around them, so it was revealed to the guard that Louis was obsessed with cleaning mirrors, and after he learned all the information about his work, he told the guard that he would come to take over the work at night, and then he would go and bring his children home, and this is because they still live with their mother, Amy. Ben broke up with her, and Ben was bringing gifts for his children on the occasion of their birthday. But when Amy found out about his presence, she came back from work and asked him to talk in private and told Amy that she was upset about Ben Euro's presence in particular because he did not know that he was coming to visit the children, and this is what upset Ben because he felt that he has to get permission to meet his children. And to reassure Amy, he swears that he stopped drinking 3 months ago and even resigned from his job in the police. Also started looking for a new job and asks Amy to give him a second chance to get him back together. At that time, we learn from Amy that Ben accidentally killed someone in his car whenever he was driving drunk. This is what made her break up with him in order to protect her children from him. After Ben Euro's words, Amy weakened for a few moments, and this was because she still loved Ben. But at the last moment she came back and asked Ben to leave, so I went to Ben and he was fanatic, and on the same day at night, Ben went and took his job. While Conan is in the observation room, he hears a sound coming from the exhibition, so he takes a flashlight and goes to search it and finds the source of the sound until he reaches the large mirror in the middle of the exhibition. And I notice fingerprints on it as if they were still new, but the strange thing is that when he tries to wipe it, it does not wipe off no matter how hard he tries, and suddenly it repeats itself. The same fingerprints are in more than one place on the mirror, and at this time he hears a sound from the basement, and so he goes down to see the source of the sound, but this time he is very worried and breaks up when he finds a water leak all over the place, and at the same time he feels like someone is watching, and the next day he wakes up, he goes in to take medication, but this time Angela sees him and also advises him to reduce her, because it is a high possibility that she will be a danger to him, and as soon as Angela walks, he stands between himself and looks at himself in the mirror, screaming when he sees his reflection in the mirror in a terrifying way to the point that he screams and falls to the ground. So Angela started running to see what happened to him, but he kicks her out and lets her stay away. from him, and then he suspects that what happened to him was because of the mirror in the palace, and that's why when he goes to work that day, he goes out to the palace a second time and stands in front of the mirror and notices the same handprints on the mirror, but this time when he gets his hand closer to it, the mirror breaks. He suffers a huge wound in his hand, and suddenly he finds the fire blazing around him and clinging to it. He shows up as he tries to extinguish the fire that caught this, but after a few moments, they are surprised that Louis Euro's wallet remains, and he sees in it a piece of paper with Elixir Euro's name written on it. Despite the terrifying situation he has been in for a few minutes, he does not give up and continues searching in the palace. He hears the voice of a woman screaming intensely, as if she is in pain, so he tries to walk behind the sound in order to save her. But he does not find anyone. However, when he approaches a mirror to the source of the sound, he sees the reflection of a girl being burned in the mirror at the same time that we see Michael, Ben Euro's son, screaming and calling Laura. His mother tells her that he saw a girl burned in the mirror, so he lost his mind. Amy tells him that this is just a nightmare and also asks him to continue sleeping. But as soon as Amy walks away, the girl, Michael, appears again. The next day, Ben talks to his sister Angela and tells her that he feels something strange happening in the mirror at the exhibition. Although Angela does not believe his words, she asks him to leave work, and this is because of his psychological state, which is worsening instead of improving. On the same day, a package of milk is delivered. There is news from old newspapers about the burning of the exhibition, the number of dead, and the neighbor who was injured in it. He also reads news about a man named Perry. He confesses that he was the one who burned the place. And Ben does not understand who I sold the package to and why I sold it to him, and that is why he goes to the showroom guard in the morning so that they can ask about Perry, but they are surprised that they found Louis Euro body dumped in a train station, and that is why Ben leaves him and goes immediately to the hospital. Because Amy is a doctor in the same hospital, he tells her that he is going in to see the body, and after much urging from Ben, Amy agrees and takes him to the morgue. There he sees Louis Euro's body and learns that he is the one who killed himself with a piece of the mirror on top of it. He becomes nervous to the point that he loses his balance and will fall and ask Amy to see. The case file is unlucky. It turns out that the reflection of the piece of mirror in Louis's hand is clean, even though it actually has blood on it. But Amy sees that it could be something normal due to the lighting of the photography above her. Explains to her that very strange things happen to him in the exhibition and that the mirrors are the reason for this. That happens is that at that time, you don't believe Amy, and she tells him that the depression medications he takes are what affected him, so I walk between him after he loses hope and she believes him. At the same time, at home, Angela is preparing her bathroom and moves in front of the mirror, but her reflection does not move, and suddenly her bug opens with all its power to the point that it breaks, and the same thing the reflection does happens to Angela, until she actually dies, and the police arrive after they complain to the neighbors about the water leaking from Angela Euro's apartment, and they also write at that time the news of her death. When he reaches him and discovers the news of Angela Euro's death, he collapses, but he is sure that the reason is the mirrors, and that Euro's why. He goes to the palace and tries to break the mirror in every way, but unfortunately in the end he fails in all his attempts until he screams and asks the mirror about what he wants from him and why you are ruining his life for him. In your house, he says a word to the mirror, Cassier, and he remembers that it is the same word that he saw in Louis Euro's wallet in Beirut between, and calls one of his friends are in the police, and he asks him to look for Elixir and see if it has any meaning or not. However, he asks him to collect information about Perry, and in fact that second day his friend calls him and tells him that he did not find any information regarding Elixir, but he says that Perry killed himself inside the prison, and that is why he is Going between to the prison, he asked about Perry. The prison director showed him the videos in which Perry confessed to his crime and told him that he was the one who burned the exhibition, and this was because he wanted to destroy the mirrors in it because they were the reason for the death of his wife and children. And when he heard what he said, he feared for his family, and that is why he took immediate action against. There he goes and removes all the mirrors in the house, and those who cannot remove them with their hands. And when Amy finds out what he is doing, she quickly returns home and forbids her, telling him that because of his psychological state, it has begun to affect his children, so he tries to understand to her the danger that is destroyed because of the mirrors. Van tries to make her understand the danger that is destroyed because of the mirrors. He also takes this to prove his words and shoots fire at one of the mirrors, but the surprise is that the mirrors break very normally, and this proves to Amy that Ben is truly mentally ill, especially after the death of his sister Angela in the horrific way he saw. Ben walks with a fanatic, and on the way he sees the reflection of his sister Angela as she was murdered in the mirror of the car. This makes him lose his balance and he was going to have an accident, but he catches himself at the last moment and breaks the mirrors of the car and then returns to the palace a second time and opens it and goes down to the basement a second time. After searching, he discovers a secret place behind the wall of the basement. He knows that this room was among the hospital. That was the location of the exhibition, and at this time his friend calls him and asks to meet him and tells him that after a long search, he was able to reach a girl named A. Cassier, and they learn that she died in the hospital where the exhibition is located, and she was 12 years old. So what happened to him was very horrific, and this is because one day, they are surprised. They kill each other in the hospital courtyard. So, he takes Anna Euro's file and returns home to study it. In fact, he finds all the information about Anna, who says that she was a patient with schizophrenia, and when he looks among the pictures, he discovers that there is no picture in them. He was clearly aware of it, and he takes advantage of it when he finds a paper. Written on it is the date of Anna Euro's discharge from the hospital, which was 2 days before the murder. In order to make sure that Anna is the person he is looking for, he takes a piece of paper with her name written on it and also puts it in front of the mirror, so that he can confirm that Anna is the one who is wanted. The next day, Amy enters to call her son Michael and find him. He is sitting and talking to himself in front of the mirror, and when he gets up, she believes that his reflection is still inside the mirror, and then she is sure of what Ben is saying, and so she calls him and tells him to come home immediately, and she also tells him what happened, and he begins to cover all the mirrors they have seen in the world, and he asks her between leaving the house and selling it, he will get rid of any possible danger to them and walk between and go to Anna's family's farm. There he meets her brother, who takes him to the basement where Anna was imprisoned and tells him that since she was young, she is not normal, and they also wrapped her around all the clergy, but there is no benefit, and at that time, Dr. Kane takes care of her condition. But she dies in the hospital before she can be treated, so he makes it clear that he knows the truth and that I am alive and that she is also falsifying the news of her death, and that is why he asks him to tell him where she is because his family Euro's life is now in danger. So her brother tells him that after she left the hospital, her condition became worse, especially if she saw anything. There is a mirror in front of her, and for this reason they take her to a monastery where mirrors are forbidden, and at that time she was living in peace in the monastery, so he sold the place of the monastery and went there, and after several attempts he was finally able to meet Anna and also told her about what happened to him and the danger that threatens his family Euro's life, and he knows that the mirror is rotating, and he wanted her personally, and she told him that she was possessed by evil spirits. But Dr. Kane was determined that she was suffering from schizophrenia, and his treatment for the schizophrenic patient was to put him in a room full of mirrors to confront himself, but at that time the spirits that were in her body were trapped in the mirror, and since then they have been looking for us to. They enter our body a second time, and she feels sorry for him that she will not be able to help him, and this is because in this way she will help the demons to leave their world. At the same time, Emma wakes up and cannot find Michael beside her, and this makes her afraid and goes out to look for him in the house, and she gets more tired when she finds that the house is flooded with water, and that is why she immediately calls Ben and asks him to follow her and save her and the children. At that time, he decides that he will use violence with Anna, and that is why he threatens her with the gun he has and tells her that he must save his family Euro's life and that she must come with him at the same time. This is when Amy goes to turn off all the open water in the house, and at that time she will see her son's reflection in the bathtub with them on her and big, and at that time it was this day. Her daughter woke up and looked for her until she found her in the cover of one of the mirrors that was removed. She also sees her mother's reflection in the mirror, and she gets tired when she finds her approaching her with scissors in her hand, wanting to get rid of her, and at the last moment Amy is able to save herself from drowning. She runs to save her love, who was actually injured in her neck, but Amy is able to treat her wound and asks him to stay in the closet until she returns it. Amy comes out and looks for Michael a second time until she sees Michael sitting on the floor in this way, and before she gets close to him, she takes him with her, and Michael is horribly dragged into the water, and it appears that he is drowning as if he is in real water. At the same time, he is between him and Anna in the mirror room and is writing in the chair that contains half of the room. And at that time he appears very many fantasies in the mirror, and she also begins to be in pain and also screams in his heart to someone. Suddenly, all the mirrors in the place explode, and with it I turned evil, and all the evil spirits that came out of the mirror spread over it, running after Ben and trying to kill him in every way, but he manages to escape from it, and he shoots a bullet into the gas pipes around it, and Viv drags it so it burns me, and unfortunately, it dies and Ben escapes. He quickly left the place before it exploded, but unfortunately they blew up the place, and while he was still inside, Michael came out of the water, and all the danger that was threatening his family ended. The next day, we discover that Ben is still alive, and he emerges from the rubble injured and goes out into the street. This time, they are surprised, and this leaves him unharmed. He understands what is happening around him, but when he puts his hand on the glass, we discover that it leaves a fingerprint on the other side, and here we learn that the curse of mirrors is still not fragile, and that it also shows that he is trapped in a new mirror. And thus the events of our film today end. I hope you have fun with us and don't forget it. You like the video, support us with a like, subscribe, and also activate the bell to receive all new updates.